Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. Today's video is the third part of the TI-10 meta videos, so we're going to be doing Offlane here, and the same thing applies as the other two. I'm just looking at statistics, pick, ban, all of those kinds of things, as well as, win rates and how hotly contested they are later into the tournament, not just the group stage, but then in the grand finals and below, like anything like that, that later on, maybe in the beginning of the meta, one hero's picked a lot or banned a lot, but then it falls out of favor because things start to change. And so I'm looking mainly at the later games. The last 5 games in the grand finals have a little bit more weight than the other ones. So just keep that in mind and let me know if you have any disagreements. But let's just jump into here. This Offlane tier list there for TI-10. And the meta here for the S tier is going to be Magnus first. And honestly, I was debating putting Magnus as an S tier hero by himself, but I think Tide was also there as well, just with the pick and ban rate and just with the success that hero had along with Magnus. It was very similar, very close. I think that Mag obviously just had a better win rate, but Tide was banned so much that I just had to put the Tide up there as well. Mag wasn't banned as much, but it just had a great win rate and was just one of the top heroes. And as such, this seemed to be the only hero in the patch that could deal with the Tiny. For whatever reason, Tiny, was just so good, and this hero, for whatever reason, could deal with it because of the way that it could catch either Tiny or Tiny's allies out of position by blinking in, horn tossing, and skewering. And so those are the two things, the skewer and the horn toss are basically the combo that gives this hero like a second ultimate. Essentially, this combo of being able to blink in, horn toss somebody so it basically stuns them, and then skewer them back to your team on with the cooldown here, not being like your ult. It's only like 30-second cooldown, I think, to use this combo. It's just crazy because basically you can get people out of position and win team fights or get pickoffs without having to commit your ult. And so this hero isn't just like an ult machine. It's not just, okay, you commit RP, you try to win the fight, and then if that doesn't work, you're screwed. This hero doesn't even have to commit RP anymore. It has like a second RP with this horn toss skewer combo that can just destroy people. We saw multiple skewers into like the fountain, all those kinds of things. Also at level 20, we have the 425 skewer range, which just can obliterate people. Just, you blink in, you skewer them all the way across the map back to your team, and there's nothing they can do. If a team tries to go high ground against Mag, he can horn toss skewer them from outside the base all the way to the tier 3s, and you're just screwed. If you're pushing high ground at all and you're in the base at all, he can skewer into fountain. It's just crazy, this hero, and what it can do. And then obviously it has all the same things that it's good at as well, like empowering and buffing up a carry. The normal RP plays where you can just RP 2 or 3 heroes and just own them and just win the game outright because of that. So all the things that make this hero good are still good, but then it has basically a second ultimate, like I talked about. And so that's, I think, why Magnus was just the number 1 offlaner in TI-10. Now, second, we have Tidehunter. And Tidehunter is just really good because of the same reasons that Tide has always been good. It feels like every TI, when, TI comes around and team fights and late game and all these things are, this kind of play style is something that is valued way more. It's a lot harder to be consistent to close out games early. You just can't underestimate Tide because he's so tanky. He can win a lot of lanes. It's very hard to lock him down. And then obviously he has the huge Ravage plays that you just can't underestimate when taking Roche, when going high ground, all of these kinds of things. Maybe he gets a refresher and then it's just insane that you can't even deal with this hero. I think Tide is just a great all-around hero in pro Dota. It's just one of these things that I don't think this hero will ever truly go away in pro Dota. It just seems like every TI, every big tournament, this hero has some kind of relevance because of the way that the pressure's on and you want to go late and have big team fights, and that's pretty much just Tide for you. So I'm pretty sure that's, honestly, there's nothing too special about Tide. I don't think he's anything crazy good. I don't think he's anything way different than what he used to be. I think it's just because of the nature of the hero. It can just win you games outright, and it's just very reliable. It's a super reliable offlane. And that's pretty much Tide Magnus. Those are your S tier. The next tier, A tier, I put down here, and I kind of debated whether or not to put Lycan and Mars at the S tier as well, because we saw this Lycan Tiny combo, or this Lycan Ursa, or whatever it was. Lycan rushing Helm of the Overlord and then rushing Ags afterwards and biting the carry and just owning games. We saw it like worked super well in so many games, but the win rate just wasn't there. It's just overall you had teams picking it that just didn't do well with it. It had a 43% win rate, and I just don't think it was overall that great. I think it was a good hero, but you kind of needed to pair it with something, and it just ended up not. It ended up being a little bit underwhelming. It was one of those things that if you didn't have a good pairing, it wasn't a good hero. So because of that, I put it in A tier. And the next thing, Mars, it's a similar kind of scenario. It's not that you needed to pair Mars with anyone. It's just that he was hotly contested. He was picked a lot, but his win rate wasn't like the best ever. He had a 31% win rate. That's pretty terrible, actually. But he was picked a lot and he was banned a lot. So it's just, he was successful when, the right player played him, but it just wasn't that great. And so because of the win rate, I put it down here, even though it was like top, 10 or whatever in pick ban combination, or I think at least in picks, it was like the 13th most picked hero. So it was definitely a good hero. It was definitely like something that can control team fights similar to Tide, but it just was a little bit more underwhelming. It just wasn't as good. Whereas the next hero, Doom here, Doom actually had a 64% win rate, almost a 65% win rate, and was picked just a little bit less, 31 games compared to Mars's 41, and was banned kind of in a similar amount, if not almost exactly the same amount. The difference is that Doom was played mid occasionally, so that's why I also didn't want to put Doom at the S tier for Offlane, because the stats are a little bit skewed because he did play mid, because Doom was like a kind of combo offlane mid hero, and probably actually had more success when it was played mid because it got more gold and it was able to just like counter that one big hero on the enemy team. And so those mid, that mid statistic sort of skews this a little bit. I didn't include Doom in the mid tier list, probably because I kind of forgot actually, but it was played more offlane. It just had the, occasional mid pick where it was mid and it did, it had success there as well. So probably I should have included that actually in the mid tier list. But either way, that's why I included an A here. And then the last three I have Legion. Just a pretty solid, good hero. Not the best win rate, but right around 50%. Wasn't banned all that much, but had a decent pick rate, 29 games. A pretty good offlane hero. Good lockdown. Good potential to snowball. We saw some games where Legion would just dominate the laning stage and was really, really good. So that's why I put Legion in A tier, because, the win rate's actually better than Mars, better than Lycan. Just wasn't that flashy. Didn't, have a long-standing track record, trek into the later portions of the main event. So that's kind of why I put it A tier, and it just wasn't the best overall, but I think it was better than some of these B tiers. And then lastly, we have Earthshaker and Elder Titan, and I put these two in here, even though Elder Titan honestly wasn't really played offlane that much. I wanted to give it an honorable mention because it's one of the heroes of the patch, one of the best ones, pretty much played 4 positions, sometimes 5, but occasionally, every once in a while, it was flexed to offlane, just, randomly, arbitrarily, sometimes when it worked with the draft. Even though it didn't fit that well, I'm just putting it up here sort of as an honorable mention. And Earthshaker is similar. Earthshaker was played offlane occasionally, just wasn't that good. It was definitely a 4-position hero like more often, but I'm putting it here because it was played offlane and it did have some success, even if it wasn't the best offlane hero. I just wanted to put these here up here, because I wanted to kind of include them on the list, but I didn't want to put them way down. So these could change just because they're more 4-position heroes, but so just keep that in mind. Next, we're going to B tier. So the B tier here for Offlane is a little bit weird because these heroes were picked a good bit, but they just didn't have much success. Honestly, Night Stalker picked sometimes, but he just kind of felt underwhelming. I thought he was pretty strong, but he had a 40% win rate. He was banned sometimes. I think he was strong in some games, but he just was a little bit more underwhelming than what I would have expected. Night Stalker, Nature's Prophet was picked a decent amount, had some good games, but actually was picked support a bunch, so the statistics are a little bit skewed there. He did have a 60% win rate, but like I said, was picked support sometimes. That didn't work out that well, but when he was picked offlane, he did pretty well. I just think that it wasn't like the offlane of the patch. It wasn't an OP Nature's Prophet patch. It just worked in some drafts, and that's why I'm putting him up here. Beastmaster, like I said, he was contested. He was played a little bit less than I kind of expected, because Lycan was really the Helm of the Overlord builder to, of the patch of TI-10, where Beastmaster really wasn't as relevant. He just wasn't picked as much. He wasn't banned as much as the Lycan there. So that's why I put him in a little bit of a lower category. He was only picked 11 times, had a 45% win rate. He was banned 44 times, so it was something where people were scared of the Helm of the Overlord, but he just was only picked 11 times. It just wasn't very relevant in the meta, but I'm still including him there because he generally was a decent hero, kind of better than a lot of these heroes down here. And then Sand King for the last one. He was picked some, just not very often, and he just didn't have a great win rate overall. He was 6-12, 33% win rate, not very good. 18 picks, only 15 bans. I think it's just one of those heroes that because the Beastmaster and Lycan meta changed a little bit, it just wasn't all about those summons like we thought it might be. Sand King just wasn't as valuable. He just wasn't good in the way that we might have thought he was going to be good going into the patch. So that's why he's down here. But I'm still including these at this kind of B tier because they were played, they were picked. And when we go to C tier here, a lot of these heroes, either they were picked very, almost infrequently, if at all. They were really not picked that much. If they, something like Necro had a high win rate, but just was barely picked. I mean, he only got picked 9 times. Something like Timbersaw, let me just see. I don't think his pick rate was very high at all. I don't even know how many games he got picked in. It was just not very many. So it's just one of these things that, only 11 games, 45% win rate. It's just all of these heroes, and most of them were not banned. Like, most of these heroes were not hotly contested, whereas, Beastmaster, not great, but was banned a lot, those kinds of things. Nature's Prophet, good win rate, decent pick rate, all those kinds of things. None of these heroes, even if they had a good win rate, they weren't banned. Even if they were picked some, like Timbersaw, he just was never banned. It was just kind of like a pocket strat. We saw Bloodseeker have some success in the grand finals with Tinker, but other than that, it wasn't really that relevant. Dawnbreaker was played almost as a carry sometimes, and sometimes a support, so the statistics are a little bit skewed on this one as well. It wasn't really having much success off lane, and that's pretty much the whole C tier. They were picked sometimes, but really not hotly contested, not great win rates overall, or just not picked very much. D tier, I have this D tier here as opposed to F tier because this D tier, there were heroes in here that basically were picked like once, twice. Centaur was picked 5 times. What's another one? Enigma's down there. Centaur picked, like I said, 5 times. Underlord picked 5 times as well. Bristleback picked 6 times, but all these heroes didn't have like the best win rates, and they just weren't banned almost ever. Bristleback only banned 5 times, Centaur banned once, Underlord banned once. Like, these heroes just were never picked. They were never picked, never really banned. So just kind of irrelevant in the patch, all of these. And then DK was picked a little bit more, but he just wasn't very good. If he was played off lane at all, he wasn't winning at all really off lane. So that's why I'm putting these here. And then F tier heroes, either these heroes were not picked or banned at all, or maybe only one game, and maybe even in that game, they weren't even in the position of off lane. So like Bounty was mostly a support, OD not even picked, Alchemist picked 1 game and carry, all of those kinds of things. So none of these heroes were really relevant. Axe didn't even get a win. I think he was picked in 2 games and lost both of them. 2 games, lost both, was never banned. So basically, these heroes are just completely irrelevant in the off-lane position, whereas these had a little bit of relevance, but were very underwhelming. These C tier had a little bit more relevance, picked a little bit more, but just still not very good, not really something you would call like meta heroes. And then all of these, obviously, were pretty much the good heroes. You wanted to pick or ban these. If you didn't, you got these. And if you just desperately, had to find something, you probably picked the B tier. So that's my off-lane tier list. That's the meta for TI-10 and the off-lane. Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe, all those kinds of things. As always, the links are below for Discord if you want to join there. Leave a replay review request there or in the comments. I'll do that on Twitch every Friday. Twitch is below as well. If you want coaching, that's on my Patreon. And go in there to support me as well. You can do that. I really appreciate it. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.